Hi, I'm Catherine Morea, and in November of 2020, I moved to Puerto Rico, and I love it here. I am so glad and so grateful that I moved to this beautiful island. There were a number of things that I expected would be different, and then there were some things that were surprising to me. And so I compiled a little list of 10 things that I found completely surprising when I moved to Puerto Rico. And so if you are considering moving to Puerto Rico as part of the Act 60 Act 2022 group, then maybe these things will help you in deciding whether this is the right move for you. So without further ado, I'm going to share my screen. All right, so as you can see, these are 10 things I wish I knew about moving to Puerto Rico. It's a US territory. So Puerto Rico is a US territory, and it's actually referred to as a possession on your tax form. There is a sense of pride in Puerto Rico as being part of America, but there's also sometimes resentment. And I was surprised to find out sometimes in social media, being called a colonizer and being told to go home. So there are trolls, there are online trolls that will label you as a colonizer or a gringo go home. So that was surprising to me. I didn't realize that was a thing here. And honestly, it's only happened to me online. It has never been a thing with the people that I meet. Everyone I have met has been really, really nice. I found that the Puerto Rican people have been extremely warm, extremely lovely. And I think there's a more sense of family in Puerto Rico, a little slower. Relationships are much more important than where I come from. There's, great import on relationship building and keeping in touch. And it's not quite as work, drive, do everything, get everything done, make business. It's much more sort of holistic. And, I'm figuring that out, but I mean, I think it's beautiful and I love it. Just be aware that it might be different from where you came from if you're coming to Puerto Rico from somewhere on the mainland. Now, here's something I didn't realize was going to happen, but it's really difficult sometimes to enter your address in Puerto Rico on web forms. So what happens is you'll be entering something and changing your address, and it will list the 50 states. It might not list Puerto Rico as an option under the territories. And sometimes a workaround is if you change the country from US, sometimes Puerto Rico is listed as a separate country, and then you can get to San Juan or whatever it is, and you can enter your zip code and the rest of your information. But I've actually had to call companies and had them manually force the address in, or put in a tech support issue and get it fixed. So that's something you might run into, is just being able to enter your address and update your address on certain web forms. The banking system. Okay, so this is kind of the big one. And I've done a lot of investigation using Facebook and different YouTube channels. And so I knew that the banking system would be different than what I was used to. In some ways, it's like going back in time. There are things that you are used to doing in the mainland that you won't be able to do in Puerto Rico, or you'll be able to do them, but it will have a price. So one of the things that happened was I wanted a safety deposit box. And it turns out that with the bank I'm using, Banco Popular, you actually aren't eligible for a safety deposit box until you've had an account with them for 6 months. Similarly, I wasn't eligible for mobile deposits, like using your cell phone to take a picture of a check and deposit it. It just isn't available. And when I called, I found out that's something that they only give to you after you have a history with them of approximately 6 months. Doing things like doing a wire transfer. The way you can do that is there is an option that you can pay for. In my case, it was going to be $40 a month, so I could do some online banking. And for me, the amount of wire transfers and online banking that I need to do, it didn't justify paying $40 a month. So currently, if I have a transaction like that, I go to the bank in person. And if you're used to doing things, online and used to everything working really seamlessly, and you don't want to go to the bank and sit in a chair and wait and possibly be there for an hour or two and then wait for someone else and be there another hour, like, get over it, because that could happen here. It's a thing. So closer connections. So I am not an attorney. I am not your advisor. These are my experiences. So please don't take this as tax advice or professional advice. Okay, this is just what my experience is in dealing with closer connection. It's not only that you need to set up your closer connections in Puerto Rico to show that you have a closer connection to Puerto Rico than where you came from. But in my case, coming from California, it's also very important that I show that I no longer am connected to California. And one of the things about that was making sure that I didn't still have addresses, bank accounts, even things like storage units. Now, there are some states that are not as aggressive as California. So this might not apply to you and where you're coming from if you're moving to Puerto Rico for the Act 2022-60 tax incentives. But if you are moving from a state like California that can be very aggressive, you don't want to leave things in your home state that make it look like you're coming back, because that can be audited. That's what I understand, is that can be audited and looked at. And if you have a storage unit, if you have a mailbox somewhere that you're still getting mail, even UPS box, something like that, or you have family, close family, wife, young children who are not adults yet, that's going to blow up not only your closer connections in Puerto Rico, but it's definitely going to make you still liable for your taxes in the state that you're leaving. So really look at things like, another thing is licenses. Are you licensed? Do you have a professional affiliation, a professional membership, a church that you're still affiliated with in the state you're leaving? So not only do you need to get rid of that, but also really make your home in Puerto Rico. If you're coming to Puerto Rico, as I did, get connected in the community, join the church, join the groups, go to classes, be involved in the community, and really make it clear that this is where you live now. For me, I don't feel that this is a problem because I love it in Puerto Rico and I love being connected with the community and doing all the things here in Puerto Rico. I'm not hiding out somewhere behind some gates. This is where I live now, and I absolutely love it. And I encourage you, if you're coming to Puerto Rico, embrace it. It is a beautiful tropical island, and we're so lucky and blessed that we get to live in a place like this. The Puerto Rican flag. So I have never seen flags so much of any place I've ever been as in Puerto Rico. And it's such a beautiful flag, and you will find it in murals, you'll find it on the side of buildings, you'll find it celebrated all over. And there is a reason for this. For many years, Puerto Rico was not allowed to display their flag. In fact, it was illegal for someone to own a Puerto Rican flag or display the flag. And there's a book about this called The War Against All Puerto Ricans. And, just knowing something, just a little bit about the history and realizing, what's happened. And then you see the flag and you understand the pride of the Puerto Rican people and being able to display their flag. And it's really just a beautiful flag. And when I see it everywhere, I just love it. I love seeing it flying in the wind. And you can see a picture of me in the bottom corner of the screen on the beach in Isla Verde near my home, just, pointing up at the beautiful flag. And then in this other picture, you see the Hacienda Juanita with the flag painted against the side of the building. So you'll see the flag everywhere. I didn't realize how much you were going to see the flag when I moved to Puerto Rico, but honestly, it's just gorgeous. The mountains. So when I moved to Puerto Rico, I was expecting gorgeous beaches. I'd seen pictures of the beaches, and I knew there was a rainforest, and I knew there were mountains, but I just didn't know how stunning they would be. And just how abundant. They're beautiful, and there's such great foliage. There's, the avocados, the beautiful tropical plants. There's a cave system. There's incredible caves. And then there's all these wonderful waterfalls that you can hike up and you can slide down. It's really stunning in the mountains. And my understanding is that a lot of the tourism isn't just for the beaches, but a huge portion of the tourism is actually coming to Puerto Rico to enjoy the mountains and the jungle. crypto. So Crypto Rico, right? Crypto is a big thing in Puerto Rico. And part of the reason is because the wonderful tax incentives that are available. You know, Act 22, which is the Individual Investor Act, which is now absorbed as part of Act 60, makes it so that if you are a bona fide Puerto Rican resident, you do not have to pay tax on interest, dividends, or capital gains. And what this means is there's a lot of crypto investors who have made money or expect to make money in crypto, and they have moved to Puerto Rico for those tax incentives. Now, because of this, there's a huge portion of crypto investors, transplants that have moved here. And so I would say that if you're not a crypto investor, maybe become one, maybe take a look, because they're going to outnumber you. So there's all kinds of things like Crypto Monday and events with the different crypto people who've moved here, really fun community and really interesting stuff. So if you're not involved in crypto, maybe take a look at getting involved in crypto. WhatsApp. So there are WhatsApp groups, and WhatsApp is used in Puerto Rico more than texting and messaging or email or really anything else that I can think of. WhatsApp is the way you're going to be communicating. It's going to be the way you communicate maybe with your doctor, with other people in Puerto Rico. If you have to make an appointment, if you have a handyman, if you have someone that you're trying to get in touch with, use WhatsApp. So there's also these great groups. So there's WhatsApp groups for everything you can imagine: a hiking WhatsApp group, a yoga WhatsApp group, a vegan WhatsApp group, a foodies WhatsApp group. So if you move to Puerto Rico, get a hold of the list of WhatsApp groups and join the WhatsApp groups for what you're into, and you're going to find a great community there to get involved and do things with. So have WhatsApp. Your social security card. Now, this was surprising to me because I've lived my whole life just showing my social security number on forms when I needed to. And I have my social security number memorized, as probably you do. And that's it, right? I mean, no big deal. Well, in Puerto Rico, you actually need your social security card, your card, the actual paper card, and it cannot be laminated. And you need it for all sorts of things. You'll need it for your driver's license, for your lease or rental agreement. You'll need it to open your bank account. I mean, there were a whole bunch of things in the first few months where I needed my social security card a bunch of times. I actually didn't have one. It had been lost, I don't know, decades before, and I didn't really think anything of it. So I did go to the Social Security Administration and apply for a replacement card and, send in the form, and I got it, a few weeks later. So just realize if you are coming to Puerto Rico and you don't have your Social Security card, get that ordered because you will be needing it. Lastly, and this is the biggest thing, this is really the thing that I find the most challenging and difficult of everything I've been through in Puerto Rico, and that is addresses just don't seem to be used here. Being a real estate investor, I find this extremely challenging. I mean, I'm in the middle of buying a property. We're still trying to get the address. We're closing on Tuesday, and we don't know the address of this property. And, trying to pull the deeds and ask an architect and ask the current owner, and just it's just strange. Addresses are just not a thing here. Now, there are exceptions, right? Some people have addresses, some businesses have addresses, but by and large, it's not tied to a property the way I was used to it in the mainland, like Google Maps, Apple Maps. Sometimes these things just don't work very well because there's not an address to tie things back to. And what people use a lot here are pins. They pin a location on Google Maps or on Apple Maps, and they'll send you a pin. So that's a very common thing in Puerto Rico, is say, hey, where's your house? Oh, I'll send you a pin. Oh, where's the party going to be? Let me send you a pin. And that works pretty well. Not always, but it works pretty well. The thing is, I think younger people, millennials and such, I'm not a millennial. Millennials are used to using pins and using technology, but when you get to older generation, a lot of times they don't know how to do a pin and they're not familiar with the technology. So they'll just use old fashioned, go past the gas station and turn left. And when you see the avocado tree, pull over and make a right. like things that I had not done in 15 years or a thing here, like the way to get, and then you'll end up with someone saying like, you know what, stop at that gas station, stop at the Puma station. I'll come over and meet you and I'll drive and you can follow me. Like that's a thing. That's how it's done. It's so bizarre and so strange. And when you look up a property and you have to figure out where it is, you can kind of use cross streets, but even that's pretty difficult. So use pins to get around. Realize that some of the tools that you might be used to, like Google Maps, Apple Maps, sites like Yelp, it's hit and miss. They sometimes work and they sometimes don't. So, so that is my list of 10 surprising things about living in Puerto Rico from someone who moved here from California. I hope you find this helpful. I hope that you decide to come to Puerto Rico and enjoy it as much as I'm enjoying it. So if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. Talk to you soon.